All right, this week we are back on mechanical things. The seats are basically ready to go and done, going back to Pat. So now we're going to be working on the Falcon again. We finally got our strut rods in from the guys in Australia. So now, with the parts from down under, we're going to make this thing handle better. Down under. All right, so what we got here on the table are the strut rods from RRS USA. Now these are the top of the line strut rods because they are the spherical bushing rather than the urethane. And when I say top of the line, what I mean by that is this is something you would use on a car that possibly sees duty as a autocross car on the weekends, or maybe goes and does some road racing on the weekends because of how these are set up. I wouldn't recommend these on a lower level car, one that's going to see mostly street duty. I would probably go with their urethanes. And the reason I really like these beyond anything else is this takes the worry and the pain out of adjusting your caster on a Mustang from 1966 on back, or a Falcon, because this rod here is a much meatier and beefier setup than the originals were, and it offers that line of adjustment. You can adjust your caster to whatever it needs to be to get to where you want on your alignment, whereas with the original systems on these cars, you're dealing with a case where it is set on the rod and you have to actually go in and start adjusting the upper control arm to put caster in or take caster out. So this allows you to do all of those adjustments out on the end of the strut rod, much like a 67 on a Mustang or Falcon, or I'm not going to go into all that. But that's the cool thing about these. Now I will tell you that there are some caveats on this. If you try to use the spherical bush system on a street car, they are much noisier than the originals or the urethanes. Urethanes are a little bit noisier. These are a lot because it's transferring every bit of road noise through this rod to the spherical bushing onto the chassis and into your ear. I don't say that it's super annoying because I've used these before and it wasn't bad, but it is probably a little more annoying if you're dealing with a car and you're trying to make it really quiet and calm and sedate, which absolutely none of the people I know who would do things like this are doing with their cars. They're usually so loud that spherical bushing is the least of your worries. I got Cam here. Cam's going to come in because I want to talk to him. I am terrible with doing these things where I'm having to drill through something and make everything sit in the right spot. And so I've got Cam here because he's much better at it than I am.
I am not, but you can keep believing that if you want. I have drilled holes in too many things sideways.
Didn't you tell me that you actually wrecked a head once?
Almost.
The guy had to dig it out?
Yeah, I drilled an exhaust stud in a 6NZ head a little bit sideways and put an extractor in it, also into the head. And yeah, somebody else had to finish that.
You're not helping my confidence level.
Hey, it's not my car.
No, it's not, but
let me go do this for you. Let's make a nice little hole. It'll be nice. And
I'm going to wreck my car. All right, I got a 5/8 inch socket on here with a 5/8 inch. Cam handed me a line wrench for this, but it's a 5/8 inch combination on top, or it should be, except if you're Cam, then you hand me a line wrench. Now these are the actual nylock nuts that came with the lower control arm. We will want to replace the nylocks here with new ones when we go to final on this. I like nylocks, I don't like nylocks. This is why I don't much like nylocks, because they fight all the way to the end. I'll take both of these out and then we should be able to pull the strut rod out. The actual strut assembly on this car is causing me to not be able to get this bolt out. So I'm going to hopefully, I'll be able to move it around a little bit after I get the front one undone. All right, so because this has the strut system on it, if you were to do this, say, using your stock struts were on the car before you did this, this is what's going to need to happen. You have to drop the lower control arm only on the strut system in order to get those two bolts here out. So what I'm going to do is I've taken pressure off of the tire to a degree. Tire is still on the ground, but it's giving me enough room that this bolt now will come out of here easily. All right, so I'm going to use a longer pry bar here and pull this out. You can see that the strut's dropping a little bit, but there you go. Now with this like this, we can go in and pull the bolts out and remove remove the strut rod from the car, at least theoretically. What's holding us right now, I think, is the fact that this is not wanting to come out, and I think it's caught on the chassis a little bit. There we go. Yeah, it was caught on the chassis. Welcome to Awkward Hammering Angles. I'm your host, Jford. Ooh, that's shifted. And that is your original strut rod. I'll show you what I'm talking about with the alignment setup. This one's so frozen on here it won't even come off. The rods on the V8 cars were actually pretty big, but if you tried to go in and add threading to this, it's going to cause you a problem because this threading is not going to be what you need it to be able to get adjustment. Plus there needs to be adjustment back beyond this point. You do just as well to spend the money to go ahead and get the strut rods from the guys at RRS and make that happen. So, going to make me a knife out of that, I think. Oh. Problem we have is that this has a shoulder on it that will not fit inside of here, and the reason for that is it appears that there is a C bushing here. It's got a little bit of a gap right here on the side of it. We figured that this was probably to keep from jacking up the original rubber bushings that would go in here, because if it was on the edge metal like there is right here on the bottom, it would eat that up. That spherical bushing is not going to care one whit about that. So we're going to knock this out, at least theoretically, because I'm really bad at this. We're going to try knocking this bushing out of here so that we can put the new one in, or just, well, put the spherical bushing in. There we go. If I work really hard, I can hit cam with it. And we're hoping that this will give us what we need as far as room. May not, but we're hoping it will. Oh, like butter. Oh, I was worried it wouldn't come out. So what we're going to do now is Cam, in all his epic drilling abilities, we're going to take and set this in here. But there you go. If you have that little thing like that in there, you're good to go. If you don't, you may have a problem and need to open that hole up. We talked about using a flap disc to do that. You could possibly also use a file. You have to remember this is just a locator now for the spherical bushing. So now cam comes into play.
All right, I've got my spherical bushing here. Make sure we use the shouldered edge. We also found out that this is actually a grease zerk, not a set screw like we thought it was. Makes sense. So we're going to have this at the bottom. We're going to leave the set screw in it while we're driving just so it doesn't get hit by anything. But we are going to line this up. All right, and I have a 1/4 inch transfer punch that I'm going to put through this top hole here. All right. And I'm going to desperately try to hit that tiny thing with this big hammer. All right, so I have a really long 1/4 inch drill bit. You want a long one. A normal jobber length is not really long enough. You're going to be kind of angled with the drill. So go ahead and find yourself one of these at a hardware store. All right, just going to make sure that I'm in the bit and try to drill straight. You know, that's name of the game here, I guess. Someone's game. Oh wait, safety glasses. That's better. All right, with long drill bits, be very careful because they will break in the center very easily. And we are pushing through 3 pieces of steel, so every layer that we pass through is going to represent a chink that's going to try and break the bit. So just be very careful here. Take it slow. All right, gonna locate you.
All right, so now I'm going to go in and clean up the holes a little bit, get all the debris out of here so that we have a nice clean area to work. when we're putting this back in. Now, were I doing this for real final, I would possibly go in and paint all this and make it look really nice. But you can see I've got a lot of that kind of work to do in front of me on this car. A lot of this is going to be blown back out of here for us to do the work later on. We're just trying to get the car stable and drivable so we know how the suspension handles, and then going back in and doing some of this. Now the back side back here, there's probably some burrs. And what you can do is you can take a drill and kind of chamfer the holes with a drill. You're not going to get a reaming tool in here, so this is probably your best bet to just clean those up a little bit. But you have a nice flush sit with the back half of this. And I'm also going to go back in now and just clean this up with that brush to get it to where it'll sit perfectly flat on that surface. All right, now what I'm going to do is I've got everything cleaned up. I'm going to go in and put my bearing in first. I'll try doing it with all three of them at once. Wow, that went right in there. Ken did such a nice job. And I'm going to put my backing plate in next. We are real close to the weld point in the actual chassis. It's causing a bit of a struggle. This space right up here is super tight. It's because of the brace that's on the chassis here. So I'm going to go into the other shop and I'm just going to clearance that top edge a little bit along until I can make that fit. All right, what I did is I went over into our other space and I have a grinder over there. So I ground the top edge of this and I opened this hole, one hole up to a 9/32 hole from the quarter that these are, hopefully giving me enough room to be able to jiggle all this into place. I don't want to open any more of these up than I have to, and I'm not going to open any. If I do anything else, what I'll do is I'll open all of these up to a 9/64 as well. What's going on right now is that top edge is still causing me some issues back here on that very top edge one, but I'm going to see if I can get any of these other ones to start with that pushing now, because one of these was pretty darn close. Okay, that one pushed through. Looks like we might be good to go. Yep, okay, now both of them are pushed through. I'm going to put my nuts on here and start them on. You want this thing to be really tight, so I'm not unhappy with what I'm feeling up there at all. Those are tight. Now we go into working on the shaft. We're going to have to get this ready to go back in. We're not going to put it back in quite yet, but it could be kind of a ticklish bit of fun. We're going to lift the car up a little bit so we can move the lower control arm around enough to get the bushing and all in here. All right, now when you're doing this, you have an inner bushing, which should be on the shaft when you put it in here. Send it in there and you'll hear it zink into position. And yes, that's a technical term, zinking. Outer bushing goes on this end. It needs to be seated. And the outer nut goes on. Now this is so that you can adjust your caster. I do not know where this is going to end up sitting. We will figure that out after we get everything put back on the lower control arm down on this end. And that's probably going to happen right about now. Because right now, the tire is sitting on the front of the fender, right here. So that's the only thing holding it where it's at. So we need to pick this thing up in the air so that we can move everything around, get the bolts back in here, and then get the control arm reestablished where it's supposed to be. Cam! All right, so we're going to pick up the front end a little bit. Got the bolt in on that one, but we may have to look around and get that one together. we get the 5/8. We're gonna get these, just take these and get them pulled down, and then we're gonna just get going on this and finish it up. All right, let's see. It's got to roll backwards toward the back of the car a little bit.
Okay, you can jack it up then.
Pretty sure
Yeah.
the wheel is turned.
Talk about that kid.
For more insightful insights, see Logan Johnson.
Phenom, I tell you.
Yes, wheel does turn.
Real third. Real good. Appropriate use of a tool.
Everything's a hammer except the hammer.
I am your host, Jford, and my co-host, Logan Johnson.
Here, I'm gonna thump the tire. You tap the bolt lightly.
Right. There we go. True. The bolt is true. Now, one thing we're going to have to do is we're going to probably have to source some steering stops for this, because this doesn't have any steering stops on it. Our other strut rods, Cam, can you hand me that one? Our other strut rod had the factory style steering stop on it. Some of the early cars do, some of them don't in the V8 setups. This one is a car who does have the steering stops. All right, so I like this. I like this pretty much better than anything else that's out there.
Yeah.
It's a nice, easy install. The only thing that's a little hinky on it are the backing plates, because drilling.
Yeah, drilling those holes kind of.
Your mastery of drilling has now dropped a touch with me.
Oh no, it's right where it was before. In fact, that's probably
bad.
better than I have in the past.
I still think that's the only thing about the kit that's kind of ishy.
That's the only part of that install that I'm not 100%
I don't know how you would do it differently to get what they got.
Yeah, but I like it being bolted in. Rather than just clamped, I like it.
I think that it's a better way to do things. I think that there's a couple of other kits out there. You've got something different on yours. You got the Clevis
I've got a
style?
Clevis style strut, which is good. It does the same exact thing, probably a degree or two maybe of deflection overall of caster, but the Clevis style, as I see it, only allows up and down movement of the strut, whereas this allows a more, not 360 degree, but left, right, up, down.
Right, because there is some amount of play in that lower control arm, fore and aft.
And as the control arm goes up, there is a slight move of in and out in that strut rod, where it would put pressure on the side of the Clevis, but the Clevis style does the same thing.
Yeah, I just think this one works a little bit better. I like the spherical bush because of the fact that it's very precise. It's going to keep that thing out there where it needs to be for your caster. So.
And this is greasable, which I really like. That will quiet it down massively. If you put a really heavy or sticky grease inside that, it'll quiet it down much more than the Clevis style.
Yep. Anyway, go out and support the Patreon account. The $10 a month level, you get monthly meetings with me, but really more than that, you're actually saying, hey, with your money, I think I've gotten something more out of this than just what I get from other channels. If you think that, and you feel that way, please go out and support us on whatever monthly level you want to go to. I mean, you don't have to do $10 a month. You can do $2 for all we care. It's just a way for you to show that you really appreciate what we do for you. And we do a lot of work on these. This is not a fast and easy process, believe me. The filming of this and doing all the work, having a camera crew here on Saturdays, it takes a lot of effort and time.
Enormous process for such a small job.
It's just a job. We'd had this done in like an hour, and it's taken most of a day because we've been filming it. But do that. I mean, if you've seen these people going up beside me here, those folks are the ones that have put their money where their mouth is, and they are supporting us on a monthly level. Also, subscribe to the channel. We are on our march to 100,000 subscribers. We're danger close unless YouTube does something to jack us up. That's the nicest way I can put it. When they go in and they do a call and we lose a lot of people, If they don't do that, we're like right at 95,000. We're on the verge of 95,000. We're so close I can taste it. By Christmas, I would love, as a Christmas gift, to get that PDF from YouTube saying, hey, buddy, you've made it to 100,000. For a mere $850, we'll do you a plaque and send it to you.
PDF plaque.
JPEG. Here's what I'm going to do.
Not even a PDF.
Now the first week, I'm just going to put a JPEG, the picture of the plaque, in Paul's wall over there. Anyway, you guys do me a favor. Be kind to each other. Treat each other nice. Love on each other. You guys have a great week. We'll see you next time on Autorestomod.
Now we got to do the other side.
We don't have to do anything.
You have
to. No. That's the side that Deanna does. She had her little shopping trip today to go to the craft fair in Aiken. Like Gumby.
She should be all reset and ready to work.
She should be like fired up.
Yeah, that's how women work. No, it's not.
That's not how they work at all. She'll be like, she'll still do
I'm going to take a nap now.
No, she won't. If I tell her that needs to be done and we can manage to get some of the kids out here to go and film it, it'll be a Zoom. She'll be done with it. So, I'll be helping. I'm tired now. Bye.